Have you ever heard about soursop leaves and their traditional use for health? Soursop, scientifically known as Annona muricata, is a tropical plant that has been used in traditional practices for generations. While most people know soursop because of its fruit, the leaves have also attracted attention from researchers. Why? Because soursop leaves contain many naturally occurring plant compounds, including flavonoids, phenolic compounds, alkaloids, and acetogenins. Scientists have investigated these compounds for several potential biological activities. Some studies have looked at antioxidant activity. Others have investigated inflammation, blood sugar, microorganisms, stomach health, and even cancer-related research. But there is an important point we need to make clear from the beginning. Research on soursop leaves does not mean that drinking soursop leaf tea can cure disease. Many studies have been performed in laboratories or on animals. Human evidence is much more limited. So today, we're going to look at 10 potential health benefits of soursop leaves while keeping the science in perspective. Let's begin with one of the most commonly studied properties, antioxidant activity. Before discussing the potential benefits, let's understand the plant itself. Soursop is a tropical tree belonging to the Annonaceae family. Its scientific name is Annona muricata. The tree produces the large green fruit commonly known as soursop, graviola, or guanabana. But the leaves are also traditionally used in different parts of the world. Researchers have identified many different compounds in the leaves. Some of these include flavonoids and phenolic compounds, which are commonly studied because of their antioxidant properties. The leaves also contain acetogenins, a group of compounds that has attracted significant scientific attention. These compounds are one reason why soursop has become a subject of laboratory research. However, the presence of a bioactive compound doesn't automatically mean that the whole plant can be used as medicine. Scientists need to determine the dose, safety, effectiveness, and how the substance behaves inside the human body. With that in mind, let's look at our first potential benefit. The first potential benefit is antioxidant activity. Our bodies naturally produce molecules called free radicals. Free radicals are not automatically harmful. They are part of normal biological processes. But excessive oxidative stress can damage cells and contribute to biological problems. This is why scientists are interested in foods and plants that contain antioxidant compounds. Soursop leaves contain several compounds that have demonstrated antioxidant activity in laboratory research. One study examined extracts from soursop leaves and found antioxidant activity in several fractions of the plant. Researchers identified compounds including quercetin, catechins, caffeic acid, chlorogenic acid, and other phenolic substances. These compounds are interesting because they can interact with oxidative processes. So, could soursop leaves help protect the body from oxidative stress? They may have potential, but there is an important difference between laboratory antioxidant activity and a proven health effect in humans. A laboratory result does not automatically mean that drinking soursop leaf tea will prevent a disease. More human research is needed. The second potential benefit involves inflammation. Inflammation is actually a normal part of the body's defense system. When the body responds to an injury or infection, inflammation can help protect and repair tissues. The problem is that excessive or long-lasting inflammation can become associated with many health conditions. Researchers have therefore studied plants that contain compounds with anti-inflammatory activity. Soursop leaves contain several plant compounds that have been investigated for this reason. Laboratory and animal studies have reported anti-inflammatory activity from certain soursop extracts and compounds. This sounds promising, but can soursop leaves cure arthritis or other inflammatory diseases? There isn't enough human evidence to say that. A better way to describe the research is that soursop leaves contain compounds that may influence inflammation-related processes. This makes them interesting for scientific research. But people with chronic inflammatory diseases should not replace prescribed treatment with soursop leaves. The third potential benefit is related to blood sugar. High blood sugar is an important health problem around the world. This has led researchers to investigate many traditional plants for possible effects on glucose metabolism. Soursop leaves are one of them. Research has found that extracts from soursop leaves may affect enzymes involved in the digestion and absorption of carbohydrates. One laboratory study found that soursop leaf extracts inhibited enzymes such as alpha amylase and alpha glucosidase. These enzymes are involved in breaking down carbohydrates. Other experimental studies have also investigated possible effects on glucose regulation. But here's the important part. Most of this evidence is still laboratory or animal research. That means we cannot say that drinking soursop leaf tea treats diabetes. Diabetes is a serious medical condition that needs proper monitoring and treatment. So the more accurate statement is, soursop leaves contain compounds being studied for their potential relationship with healthy blood sugar regulation. That's interesting, but it is not the same as a diabetes cure. The fourth potential benefit is related to stomach health. Stomach problems such as irritation, discomfort, and ulcers have been investigated in traditional medicine for generations. Soursop is one of the plants that has been studied in this area. Some experimental studies have reported anti-ulcer activity from soursop preparations. In simple terms, researchers are investigating whether certain compounds from the plant may help protect the stomach lining under certain experimental conditions. This is interesting, but there is a big difference between protecting the stomach in an animal experiment and treating a human with an ulcer. If someone has frequent stomach pain, acid reflux, vomiting, or other persistent symptoms, they need to know what is causing the problem. Soursop leaves should not be considered a replacement for proper diagnosis. So, when we talk about stomach health, the responsible message is, soursop leaves have shown interesting potential in experimental research, but we still need better human studies. The fifth potential benefit is antimicrobial activity. Microorganisms such as bacteria can cause different types of infections. Because of this, scientists continue searching for natural compounds that may interact with microorganisms. Soursop leaves have been investigated in laboratory studies for their antimicrobial properties. Some extracts have shown activity against certain microorganisms under controlled laboratory conditions. But this does not mean that soursop leaves can cure an infection. There is a major difference between stopping bacterial growth in a laboratory dish and treating an infection inside the human body. An infection may require specific diagnosis and medical treatment. So, if you have symptoms of an infection, you shouldn't replace medical care with herbal tea. Instead, the research tells us something else. Soursop leaves contain compounds that are interesting enough to be investigated for antimicrobial activity. And scientists are still trying to understand exactly how these compounds work. The sixth potential benefit is liver health. The liver plays an important role in processing nutrients, medications, and many substances in the body. Because of this, researchers are interested in plant compounds that may have protective effects on liver cells. Some experimental studies involving soursop have reported possible protective effects on the liver. Certain antioxidant compounds found in the leaves may be involved in these effects. However, we need to be very careful with the wording. This does not mean soursop leaves can treat fatty liver disease, hepatitis, or other liver conditions. Most of the evidence comes from laboratory or animal research. So the research is better described as potential liver protective activity rather than a proven treatment. If someone has abnormal liver tests or symptoms related to the liver, professional medical evaluation is much more important than relying on an herbal remedy. The seventh area is wound healing. The body has a natural process for repairing damaged skin. Scientists have investigated whether plant extracts can support different stages of this process. Soursop is among the plants that have been studied for possible wound healing activity. Some experimental research has reported effects that may support tissue repair. Antioxidant and anti-inflammatory compounds may be part of the reason researchers are interested in this plant. But again, we need to distinguish laboratory findings from medical treatment. A serious wound, infected wound, deep cut, or wound that does not heal properly should be treated by a healthcare professional. Soursop leaves should not be placed directly on an open wound without appropriate medical guidance. The interesting part of the research is not that soursop is a miracle wound treatment. It's that scientists have identified biological activities that may be useful for future research. Now we come to one of the most talked about claims surrounding soursop. Cancer research. Soursop contains a group of compounds called acetogenins. Some of these compounds have been studied in laboratory experiments involving cancer cells. Researchers have observed interesting biological activity in several experimental models. This is one reason soursop has attracted so much attention online. But this is also where misinformation can become dangerous. A substance that affects cancer cells in a laboratory is not automatically a cancer treatment. A laboratory experiment is only one early step in scientific research. Scientists still need to determine whether a substance works safely in humans, what dose would be appropriate, how it interacts with normal cells, and whether the benefits outweigh the risks. So can soursop leaves cure cancer? There is currently not enough clinical evidence to say that. Soursop should never be presented as a replacement for cancer treatment. The scientifically accurate statement is, compounds from soursop are being studied for potential anti-cancer activity, mainly in preclinical research. That distinction is extremely important. The ninth potential area is heart and blood pressure health. High blood pressure is one of the most common health problems worldwide. Researchers have investigated many traditional plants to understand whether their compounds may influence blood pressure. Soursop is among the plants that has been studied in experimental research. Some studies have reported effects related to blood pressure and cardiovascular processes. But once again, the evidence is not strong enough to say that soursop leaves can treat hypertension. Blood pressure can be affected by diet, physical activity, stress, genetics, medications, and many other factors. If someone has high blood pressure, regular monitoring and appropriate medical care are important. Soursop leaves may be an interesting subject for research, but they should not replace prescribed blood pressure medication. The future of this research will depend on better human studies. Our 10th potential benefit is actually what makes all the other research possible. Soursop leaves contain many different bioactive plant compounds. These include flavonoids, phenolic compounds, alkaloids, and acetogenins. Some of these compounds have demonstrated antioxidant activity. Others have been investigated for antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, or other biological effects. This chemical diversity is one reason scientists continue studying the plant. But there's an important lesson here. A plant containing many active compounds is not necessarily a safe or effective medicine. The concentration of compounds can vary depending on the plant, the growing conditions, the part of the plant used, and how the extract is prepared. So two different soursop products may not necessarily contain the same amounts of the same compounds. This is another reason why scientific research is important. It helps us understand what is actually inside these plants and how those compounds may affect the body. After hearing about all 10 potential benefits, you might be wondering, can soursop leaves actually cure these diseases? The responsible answer is no. At least, current scientific evidence does not allow us to make that claim. Soursop leaves have been studied for antioxidant activity, inflammation, blood sugar, stomach health, microorganisms, liver health, wound healing, cancer research, blood pressure, and many other areas. But the strength of the evidence varies. Some findings come from laboratory experiments. Others come from animal studies. There is much less evidence from high-quality clinical trials in humans. This doesn't mean the plant is uninteresting. Quite the opposite. It means researchers still have important questions to answer. So if someone says, soursop leaves cure diabetes, soursop leaves cure cancer, or soursop leaves cure high blood pressure, those statements go beyond what the current evidence can prove. The science is much more nuanced. Before considering soursop leaves as a health product, there is another side of the story that shouldn't be ignored. Soursop contains acetogenins, including a compound called annona. Researchers have investigated the potential neurological effects of these compounds. Some laboratory and animal studies have raised concerns about neurotoxicity. There is also a practical problem with commercial soursop leaf products. A study examining 7 commercially available products found considerable variation in annona levels and other quality indicators. That means products sold under the same general name may not necessarily contain the same amount of active compounds. This is why we should be cautious about assuming that natural automatically means safe. If you're considering concentrated soursop leaf products, especially if you take medication or have a medical condition, it's important to speak with a qualified healthcare professional. And remember, traditional use does not automatically prove long-term safety. So what should we take away from all of this? Soursop leaves are scientifically interesting. They contain many natural compounds. Laboratory and animal studies have identified antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, anti-ulcer, anti-diabetic, and other biological activities. But these findings are not the same as proving that soursop leaves can treat disease in humans. This is an important distinction for anyone interested in herbal medicine. Traditional knowledge can provide ideas for scientific research. Science then asks a more difficult question. Does it actually work in humans? At what dose? And is it safe? For soursop leaves, many of those questions remain unanswered. So rather than calling them a miracle cure, it's more accurate to say that soursop leaves are a traditional plant with several promising areas of scientific research. Let's quickly review the 10 areas we explored today. Number 1. Antioxidant activity. Number 2. Potential support for healthy inflammation responses. Number 3. Blood sugar research. Number 4. Stomach health. Number 5. Antimicrobial activity. Number 6. Liver health. Number 7. Wound healing research. Number 8. Cancer-related research. Number 9. Heart and blood pressure research. And number 10. The many bioactive compounds found inside the leaves. Some of these areas are more promising than others. But none should be turned into a simple promise that soursop leaves can cure disease. The best way to understand herbal medicine is to remain curious while also respecting the evidence. Soursop leaves are a fascinating example of how traditional plants can become subjects of modern scientific research. They contain compounds that scientists continue to investigate. Some early findings are promising, others are still uncertain, and some raise important questions about safety. So if you enjoy herbal remedies, don't stop being curious. But don't believe every health claim you see online either. Look for the research. Understand the difference between laboratory studies and human clinical trials. And most importantly, don't use herbal products as a replacement for necessary medical care. If you have a health condition or take medication, speak with a qualified healthcare professional before using concentrated herbal products. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more evidence-based herbal content. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.